Um, Welcome everyone. I'm Katie Bishop. I'm an energy healer and founder of the Earth Bishop practice. I'm also a facilitator of sacred mystery teachings and initiations. I'm a walk-in soul from 2011, and today I have Laura Eisenhower with me. And for those of you who don't know, Laura is a world-renowned researcher, astrologer, author, exopolitical speaker, and friend. And today we wanted to come together and share some information and some guidance during these times that really are designed to divide us and make us attack each other. And so we'd like to refocus and redirect some of the energy that's out there and bring some light to the deceptions and the distractions because the veil is thinning, and with that more truths are being exposed. And as that happens, it means that the illusion, the Maya, plays even harder to suck you into the polarity wars. So we want to address some of that today, because that's what the dark side wants. They want us to play and feed into these polarity wars. So, without further ado, Laura, thank you so much for being here. Did I miss anything when I introduced
No,
you?
not
Okay.
at all. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here with you again.
Well, what is your perspective on what we're watching playing out right now with the polarity wars on all the different levels?
Yeah, it's really powerful. It's really strong right now. Oh gosh. I mean, I can feel the frequency differences, right? With those that are really wanting to come together, that are putting the information as more of a secondary thing. Uh, and the love, the cooperation, and the coming together in a respectful way more of the priority. And I feel that is the priority. I mean, the information is here to ponder, it's here to question, to take what resonates and leave the rest. It's there to really see, you know what is it showing you in comparison with what your inner voice is telling you, and what are you determining, without it needing to be perceived as an attack, as a dismissal, but more like, wow, okay, this is an opportunity to put it all out on the table and discuss and talk about it. So when you have individuals that are sharing information that don't welcome that debate or take it as an attack, it can create a lot of misunderstanding. And that misunderstanding can grow when it's left unchecked. And when it's left unchecked, all of a sudden, a lot of projections are happening, a lot of confusion, and people might feel like they need to choose sides. And it's not about that. I mean, when I share what feels like red flags or different information from what somebody's saying, it's not like I'm right and they're wrong or choose me over them. It's simply to open up a dialogue. And I feel that people are understanding of that, or they feel the polarization, and they're being influenced by that polarization. And I feel if we can all just take a step in the direction of unity, then we're going to get somewhere. And there might be pieces that we keep about things like the Anunnaki, but we don't want to lose a lot of the important points that we have every right to be, pondering. Because before a certain speaker came about, a lot of us were researching into who these individuals were. When the messenger is mistaken for uh, the questioning, it's not about trying to harm that individual. I mean, I welcome it as far as my work goes. I'm not a perfect person. I'm not trying to say, I'm all about the unity and look at them, they're all polarized. Just trying to say that it's a daily practice, to recognize in ourselves the game being played. And if I present information, if I'm not open to the people that question it, if I'm dismissing them, banning them, deleting them, or taking it as a personal attack, or they're being compromised by the deep state if they're not listening and going along with it, I probably should reevaluate what my purpose is and why I'm even doing this. Why would I want to reenact the very thing that we're trying to wake up from? Because we see it in religion, we see it in politics, we see it in all these different pillars of society that have been infiltrated. So the disclosure community and the ascension awakening community is no different in the sense that it's very vulnerable to the similar dynamics, but with different lingo and I recognize that. So in all humility, I want to be able to present the information and have people feel a comfort level with being able to ask the questions. What triggers come up? Where's the discomfort? What belief systems or programmings do you feel are dismantling? Or what do you feel not in resonance with? And what does your voice have to say? What is your truth? Because I want to hear that, because that matters. And then maybe, wow, that's showing me and others something that they haven't considered yet. What a beautiful thing. Why is this not more welcome? And sometimes I get triggered or a little bit uncomfortable, but if I allow that to dominate the way that I approach things, I feel like I'm in a loop and I'm inviting people to be in that loop, and I just feel like we're not getting anywhere. And I feel one of my big messages is, let's not be afraid to do that deep inner work or shadow work. You don't have to be a public person and be out there and be right all the time. Um, and and I just see that that's still happening for some people, and I want to offer to them an opportunity to know from my heart that I'm not against them. I'm not smearing them. I didn't interview certain people or look at avenues to explore out of some sort of attack or dismissal. Eh, I'm all about sovereignty, and I would expect anybody else who's a colleague or friend to do the same. And I just want to say that I'm holding peace for reconciliation, and if not that, for those that are confused to understand my heart and where we're coming from, because I know that you and I have a lot in common when it comes to this. So I'll kind of leave it at that for now.
Yeah, Laura, one of the things that's always drawn me to you is your pure heart. You're so genuine and so sincere. And doing this talk with you is so important because I feel like we're both feeling the call to raise the bar from a spiritual maturity level, especially between women, because the system has designed for us to almost compete against each other and go against each other for centuries, for so long. And we have to put this to rest, and we have to, as women, come together as leaders in friendship and even use our traumas and our mistakes of our past to help us heal together, to accelerate that healing process, to find each other, to, again, be the role models that we need to be for humanity's ascension during this time. And it's all about connectivity and finding that common ground, because we're all different and we're not always all going to agree with everything, but there's going to be some major pieces that we can put together. And in this reality, I love using the game analogy. If this is a game of separation, of duality, and we're all fragments of source and we all have a different piece, then to win the game is unification. It's to put them all together. It's to find each other, no matter how different we are, and then find each other, on this plane, and then also multidimensionally, like bridging the dimensions, which is something you're really good at, is finding all these different connections and bridging, pulling the pieces together and the dots together, from all the different dimensions from the top down. So we need to approach everything from that point of view, that, listen, we're all on the same team at the end of the day. And there's so much you said that I want to play on, but you mentioned Anunnaki, and I don't want to go into this too much, but that is something that's been concerning, with some of the information out there. There's so much information out there, and at some point we all need to come together and piece some of this together. But I think we need to ask more questions, because we don't want to repeat history. We don't want to give our power away, and we don't want to give our consent away, because while there are positive factions of the Anunnaki in every race, we cannot paint any race as all good or all bad. They are also known as masters of deception. and they messed with our free will and they messed with our genetics. And this was against natural law of evolution. And this is a problem. So I I have seen presentations of their return bringing our genetic blueprint back as a gift. That was stolen from us. That's our birthright. So to have that presented as a gift is a deception and a manipulation. So if they want to come back and say, we're doing the right thing, and we come in complete peace and so much humility, that's one thing. But to come back and try to be a superstar and the celebrity and royalty and all of these things that are the opposite of what we need in humanity right now, going the opposite direction, that is something that we need to shine the light on that, on what's really happening there, because it looks like it's packaged in this really fancy, shiny marketing campaign almost. And let's at some point we need to pick this apart and actually go back to our origins before their arrival, before Earth was Earth, and our whole solar system was different. We need to go back to the original creation story, not the creation story of us as a slave race. And I know you might have a few things you want to add about Anunnaki, if you want to.
Yeah. If people want to check out my Substack, I've been doing series of articles about all of this. And in a really, loving, constructive way. But it's almost crazy though, if you even share similar to what you just shared, some people are just like, whoa, you keep trashing this person. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with a person. I've been studying this and researching it and feeling into the downloads and just the mission since I was a child. And this goes back many lifetimes. A lot of us are very well versed in these factions of the Anunnaki that you're talking about. And the Anunnaki was actually created as a response to the spark of the Sophionic energy being put in all humans in order to almost like stand in the way of our awakening. The planetary grid network being manipulated. There's factions and offshoots that have absolutely been about the manipulation. So how is it a gift? Unless you are bridging into those origins and explaining what actually happened. What were you up against? Why did this take place? The suppression of DNA activation, control of Earth grid systems, the interference of the Christ Sophia unification template, which is our divine birthright. It already exists within us. We are the gift. Our remembrance is the gift. How we support one another in remembering. We don't need it handed to us because it always was us. So I agree with what you're saying. If there's not humility, if there's not an honoring of the very species that was taken from, then it's definitely something to be very cautious of. These med beds, the Grail DNA is being returned. The Anunnaki never carried the Grail DNA. They were fallen. And if they weren't fallen, they were created for a specific purpose. And so, yeah, Enlil might have played more of less aligned with humanity role, and Enki a little bit more of a helpfulness towards our liberation. But to me, it's like a prison guard who's a little bit more friendly and gives us better food. So I just, the immediate red flags come up in me. And it has nothing to do with the messenger. I don't wish anybody any harm, but I'm not just going to sit there just for the sake of making other people feel comfortable when you're denying yourself. And if you don't want to hear it, you don't want to hear what I have to say, you don't want to follow me, I really don't care. You want to debate what I have to share, that's totally fine. I will not ban you. If you're derogatory and abusive, perhaps I'll put the pause button on, but this isn't about me. This is about all of us. And this whole royalty thing, the Anunnaki are behind why the Cabal even came into existence. The Enki and Enlil faction have a lot to do with the different control agendas on the planet, the Black Suns and the Sons of Belial. The reversal grid network is to keep our junk DNA alive and to keep us from being aware of the Christ Sophia, the integration of polarity. So if you are having emissaries and representatives that are banning and dismissing, or all up in arms calling you a counterintelligence or a deep state agent for not going along with it, well, that's enough right there. Because I would love to be a part of this greater dialogue. I don't mind sitting with Enki and Enlil themselves and being like, all right, are we ready to heal this? Um, the thing is, source energy is unconditional love. Wants all children, races, beings to come home. And nobody is banned, nobody is punished, nobody is deleted if you don't go along with that, because truth and unconditional love don't require followers. It's a sustainable flame that is infinite, right? So when you're using technology to gain immortality and you're dumbing down the human race to siphon and feed off of their creative energy, and say that there was some kind of genetic manipulation to help advance us, was that before or after there was the Galactic Wars and the Angelic Wars that dropped us down to this lower harmonic universe to then what, give us some quality so we could be better slaves, so that we had a little bit more of an ability to serve them better? I mean, this whole hierarchy has got to collapse. And when you look at some of these federations, they're all based in military command, the higher command, where this is all a gift. Oh, they're not here to save us. But in the same breath, if you don't go along with it, then you're being played and you're stupid because you're just going along with the deep state agendas. Where's the middle ground of being a sovereign being? And I'm all about the sovereignty. So in that sovereignty, I should be able to stand for my truth and have in your sovereignty, you do the same and have us be able to harmonize, realizing that we're unifying. If the Anunnaki are ready to unify, great. There's no rejection of the Anunnaki, but I'm certainly not going to give my power away or to be accepting of this narrative. And if I'm dismissed, that's fine. But that wasn't my idea. So if people say, you're bashing or you're against so and so, I never shut the delete button. I never pressed that button. I was always like, with all mutual love and respect, let's talk. And if I interview somebody, it's not because I agree with them either. You'll never hear me say I agreed with that person or went along with what might have been threatening. That happened years before I even interviewed this person. It happened 6 months after there was no communication with this individual. And I guess it's getting obvious who I'm talking about, but all I'm saying is uh, either let's heal and let's put down the information and come together on a heart level, or continue with this hierarchy game and this royalty thing. And I want to speak to the people though, and just say, just remember who you are and what you're made of. There's unconditional love no matter what you decide. If you choose to reject me because I'm not going along with it, that's fine. But I'm here to hold peace and truth and sovereignty and union and remembrance. And some people just aren't ready for that, and that's fine.
Well, you just said so many brilliant things. And so speaking of cabal and red flags and distractions, I find a lot of the galactic storytelling and information quite distracting from the true mission of waking humanity up to who we really are and that remembrance. And one of the things for me that I find triggering is when I keep hearing this soundbite of the Star Trek future narrative. And it reminds me of the cabal media, where everyone has the same script and they use the same buzzwords to program people.
Like,
And
trust the science.
yeah, like, oh, you want this, you want this. And um, I know for me, that's not what I want. I appreciate the technology and I think it's interesting and it's fascinating. Actually, quite honestly, I find it boring. I find our own human biology way more interesting, so much more fascinating than anything you're going to get on a spaceship. Okay. But if that's what people want, that's wonderful. I just want people to understand that they have a choice because there's not a lot of people talking about the other side of that. And I want people to understand that Star Trek Future is not ascension. That is, Star Trek Future is playing the game of duality at a higher level. That's what that is. And if you want to do that, you have free will, you will have fun. That's wonderful. I just want people to know that there's a choice and that there's a difference. And I also think it's important for us to understand as a collective that we need to really learn to embody this fourth density consciousness of forgiveness and unconditional love without judgment, because that is what's going to allow us to activate the supernatural abilities of our soul and our self-healing and our intuition beyond the five senses. And if we don't do that before we bring in the technology, we are going to devolve. And here's why. Because if we don't learn that first, we're going to think this technology is great and we're going to have it do everything for us and we're going to become dependent on it, and then we're not going to know how to go backwards, and then we lose control. So I think it's really important to understand, just be aware and question things. If something doesn't, you don't have to go along with all of the galactic narrative, because quite honestly it's not very spiritual in a lot of ways. I call a lot of the channelings that people do in information and storytelling out there. I call it saccharine spirituality, because it feels artificial and it feels sterile and fake. Like there's no heart behind it. It feels
Yeah.
hollow inside. Like they're mimicking, like they're saying the right words. They're using like love and light and sovereignty, but there's there's no energy behind it that's conveying the essence of love, of
Right.
of source. Do you know what I mean? How do you feel about like the technology aspect? Because it's important and we need it, but it has a time and a place.
Right. I've never really resonated with when people are like, we're moving into a Trek future. I'm like, what is that? Because humans think that the ascension is not possible, which has nothing to do with what's granted to us. It has to do with what we're awakening to, our dormant DNA coming back online. The planetary grid network has been, healed. The mother energy is returned. The trajectory of organic ascension is there and available. What is this? It just feels like a cop out. Doesn't mean that those technologies aren't going to be available, but they need to work in tandem with our spiritual development, because ultimately we are the advanced biology. When we switch on these dormant strands of DNA, we can come and go from the physical as we please. We have a Merkaba body that is like a UFO that helps us to move through stargates and go to different, star systems. And, there's the technology, but then there's our inner technology. We can time travel. We can do all sorts of things. We have greater ability. If technology is doing that for us, that's why it feels sterile, and that's why it doesn't feel like it has heart or soul behind it. And then, you're still probably in galactic wars, or you're in some sort of just constantly just in these ships wearing these freaking spacesuits, which is great. And a lot of people want that. But there's a big difference between like the Christ Sophia divine template and Anunnaki overlay systems and federations, right? So I feel the one that's taking us into more technological advancement is the same sort of pathway that's taking us into a false sort of utopia. It's a more decorated prison. It's still, somehow enslavement. You're still looking outside of yourself to something that is a greater master that has the answers more so than you. And we've already been there, done that. That's why there was a fall of Atlantis. That's why we've been, very vulnerable to, control systems coming in. Yes, they have hoarded technologies. Then if those technologies are made available, it looks to me like that particular trajectory of the Star Trek future is based in the problem reaction solution game. Oh, things have gotten so bad on Earth. Here we are with this option to use this technology, these med beds, all these different advancements. But what about technologies based in awakening DNA, based in sound, color, frequency, that would be called med beds, but function completely and totally differently, that aren't being handed to us by a galactic federation, but are being created by humans that are living here, who are guardian souls, who are starseeds, who are earth warriors, who have worked with these modalities or understand these, coming from organic downloads, coming from working with crystals, coming with working with sound healing and herbs and all sorts of things. It's all there. It's all available. And the thing is, if we can hold space for our children that are being born to guide them in becoming all that they came here to be, and if we begin dismantle the programmings within ourselves, we'll realize, wow, we actually have everything we could possibly need. And then we see this earth, return to that Edonic, or those codes that we hold of Eden being restored. And this is one of the first planets. It's a very rare thing for it to be this infiltrated and this inverted as far as the system goes, to then go through this alchemy and be restored, not to what it was before, but to a whole new level of transformation. And it's like, wow, this is what I feel like we're here for. Others that want that to go off in that's great. But you might find that the federations are fallen beings that have separated off from source, that have used technologies as a replacement and a life cycle to the regenerative power of nature and the connection with source energy that gives us the 12 strand and beyond. Because the Christ Sophia template is diamond sun body, organic ascension via the heart, 12 to 13 strand and beyond, the mother arc and the father principle in union, which came before the Anunnaki, came before the federations, came before the Cedars. The Cedars emanated from the Galactic Center of Divine Mother, Father, Christ, Sophia, and the founder groups, the Guardians. And some of these Cedars ended up disconnecting and not being aligned with Source anymore. And so it just seems like, hey, let's go and do this all on our own. And some have stayed in alignment, right? But we're here to not have it done for us. We're here to remember so that we can work with our galactic heritage and councils and groups that we are meeting on more of an equal level. Instead of we're victims, we need this technology, we are not into this waking up process, we don't want to go through what that's going to take. Well, that's what the Illuminati and the Cabal are doing. They want to skip the whole process of clearing and purification and facing where they've been, duped, compromised, possessed, taken over. But if enough of them are willing, we're going to hold the space for that with rehabilitation centers, with the understanding of things like MK Ultra, with understanding of satanic ritual abuse, with understanding of blackmail and being drugged and being forced to do this, right? That's the kind of work we have to do. And then once that begins to happen, we can see the dark lords for who they are, and their numbers are small, are the ones that are behind all of it that don't want to wake up or heal. So we have to be very, very careful, because yes, there might be groups coming in and being like, well, we're going to just save the day, but they're not the ones that wiped out the Greys and Dracos. The grid workers, the guardian souls, the outer barrier that was put around the planet. The people that are no longer consenting to the vampiric system are clearing those beings. The white hats, positive military units that are here on a ground level, that connect to higher self, that's connected to beings and guides and forces that are holding space for us to be able to recognize that they're our allies and friends. They're not our saviors, and they're not any technology, until we begin to recognize our inner technology and our capacity to work with organic things that exist on this planet, that already hold the healing codes, that will begin to wake up the codes that we carry. Because the thing is, there's so many people that already have the override frequency to collapse dark weaponry by simply holding the space, holding the ground. Yeah. Right? So people don't realize that they're already holding that, because they're so lost in the distraction. The distraction is what thickens the veil. The trauma loops, the divide and conquer, the lower frequency energies of negative ego are the things that keep us from it. So nobody needs to gift us with anything. We just need to get back into alignment and have a major boundary, so that dark Saturn is no longer the controller or the savior. We have the discernment, we have the boundaries to be able to develop and reawaken what organically in these times is being switched on. And so then we will notice that the earth responds to us, and that these gateways are beginning to open, and we're seeing, the resonance with galactic beings that are taking us beyond a Star Trek future, are taking us back into, advanced civilizations that are glorious and really beautiful, that can come and go as well. But to abandon this earth just to go off, into that Star Trek future, well, I guess if you grew up a Trekkie, that sounds awesome, but you have options.
Yeah, yeah. And in this age of mass deception, I think it's really naive and somewhat foolish to think that any one of these organizations, whether they be federations or military, that they're all good or all bad. They are all mixed. It is all duality. And so don't put everything, all, all of your faith into one, that they're going to save the day for you. And this goes for the three-letter agencies because there's good people in those organizations, believe it or not. So, we have to use, you said the keyword discernment, because the dark side weaponizes the truth. So they'll use the truth. They have all the information and they're going to use it and they're going to sugarcoat it and they're going to use it to get your consent and gain your trust. And they're not going to show themselves like devils with horns. They're going to make it shiny and nice and package it well. And they're going to feed on the intellect. So using your discernment, I get this question all the time because a lot of people feel like they've been so fooled that they don't trust their intuition anymore. So the intuition is going to be your guide through this. It's going to be through feeling it through your heart and the resonance and in your gut. But if that's making you nervous, there's other ways of using discernment, like look at the message. Is the message expansive or does it contract? The universe is always expanding. So a message that is opening up consciousness, opening up new realms and new ideas, that's going to be a positive, someone positive to listen to. If it's restricting and it's controlling information, that's a red flag. Or congruency is another one. If a speaker is saying one thing but behaving the opposite,
Oh,
they're not walking the talk, that's a really big red flag. And we see that a lot in this, spiritual community with a lot of ego and narcissism going on. And then is it uniting or dividing? Is the message connecting dots and bringing ideas together and uniting people, or is it attacking, and is it creating division, and is it pitting people against each other? So you can use those are pretty black and white parameters when you're looking at discernment during these really confusing times, because they are weaponizing the truth. So those are red flags, and I actually have those listed on my website. I mean, if you want to go, I've got some other free materials that are on the homepage. You can just look at that if you're struggling with discernment, because this is the time of false prophets, and there are a lot of spiritual leaders out there saying they're the reincarnation of so and so or this or that, and it's unfortunately, a lot of these people are pawns. They might really believe what they're
oh, I
saying, but
know, I know.
totally being used and they don't know it.
A lot
So
of what,
again, this is a whole nother level. Um, and so, Laura, in wrapping up, I mean, is there anything else you want to share about discernment or anything else you want to say? And then we can always come back and elaborate more on some of these topics.
yeah, and I love what you just shared. It's also, they're only communicating to me, nobody else. I'm the only one, that kind of thing. I'm seeing, and when other people are having experiences and it's being defined by somebody, like they have the answers. First of all, are they jumping into that person's space without their permission? How is it up to them to define somebody else's experience, whether it's valid or not valid? Um, if there's question marks about it, sure, because you're being discerning, right? And so maybe that dialogue opens up of this particular person says that they're communicating with the same being that I'm communicating with, and it makes me a little bit nervous. It doesn't really resonate. But when it's like a major dismissal, or those are all lies and fairy tales and delusional, and I mean, it's just kind of like, I don't know. I just feel truth isn't threatened. Truth and unconditional love are connected. I mean, there's a lot of different meanings of what truth is. I mean, there's the factual that you can't deny, but then there's your frequency, there's your authenticity, and there's your soul and what it's experiencing. It's all valid, right? We're not all going to see things the same way. But if somebody is taking away your experience because they're the only ones that are experiencing it, so therefore you're a fraud, they're not, um, that's another big red flag. Or if you're doing this particular tool or modality, that's a part of the gray agenda. It's like, uh, I don't know. I just see a lot of that, and that does create the divide and conquer. And when people also just will regurgitate anything that particular person is saying, it goes back to that kind of like worshiping or wanting that guru. And again, that's your journey. And maybe that's an important stepping stone. But I just really feel that the end goal is to find our voices, to find our truth, to listen to that intuition, to reconnect with the higher self. Nobody else can do it for you as good as you can do it, right? And we're here on earth to move through all the different obstacles, all the different programmings, all the toxicity, all the inversions in order to reclaim that. And hopefully the people that you listen to assist you on that journey versus being that replacement. We don't want to see that with technology or with, looking outside yourself. But again, wherever you're at is perfect for where your soul wants you to be. But just remember that there's so much to look forward to when you start to feel that signal that something doesn't feel right. You don't have to shove that down and dismiss that within you because it's not accepted from the person that wants to be the only one. And just know that when you feel anxiety, when you feel pain, when you feel sadness, when you feel that constriction that Katie mentioned, that is your body trying to communicate to you. It's not because something's wrong with you or because you're in fear of the narrative because you're siding with the deep state. It's something that you want to give a voice to. Maybe write it down. Maybe, open yourself up to a dialogue with somebody who's going to hold space for you, because you might be surprised that anxiety is a beautiful download, that feeling, that gut feeling that feels painful is not you fearing the narrative. It's your deep inner voice saying, hey, we've got an opinion too. And it needs to be heard. And if you find that you can't dialogue with that person who's telling you what to think, just know that you don't need them. Take what resonates and leave the rest. It's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater either. I hold love and respect for the people that I don't talk to anymore. That was their decision to step away from me for whatever reason. And I know that there's a lot of valuable things that they share, but look at what some of those red flags are and honor yourself for what signals your body opening up to the higher dimensional energies of our higher self that match what our intuition is signaling to us, to invite fully into our body, to move through these initiations and upgrades. And your life experiences is giving you everything you need. So I feel like us coming together, holding hands, having each other's back, supporting one another, no matter what our differences are, is where it's at. And when love overrides the information, I feel like it's not about belief anymore. It's about diversity and harmony being true oneness and celebration of that. So I guess that's the note I want to leave on.
I love that. That's beautiful. It's so true. Um, I had I guess a really special guest speaker on my 5D chess club last week, and he said something that I just loved about how this end of the cycle and this transition of the ages, it was prophesized that heaven was going to send their best and hell was going to send their worst. And we are watching that play out on the 3D. And so my hope is that this video is going to inspire everyone to play at their best, to, maximize their potential, to embrace being human. The dark side, that's their biggest fear, is if we ignore all this galactic stuff and we just focus on being the best humans and the best stewards of the earth and caretakers that we can be. We win through that. So I guess that's what I would like to end it on. And Laura, I can't thank you enough for your time. This
Oh,
is
it's so wonderful to be with you. Yeah, I look forward to, do more and just really holding space for, unity, hearing, people's thoughts and comments and just really holding the intent that, this is all coming together and every, piece matters, but the thing is it can't be compartmentalized anymore. It can't be just this and not that. How about we just open all the doorways up, because that's how we connect dots. That's how we heal. That's how we help the fallen ones come home again too. Not by keeping the lid on and and dismissal, just to keep up with the old games that they're playing with different tactics. Uh so it's all coming from love, because we all come from the same source. So
That's beautiful. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. And leave your comments and let us know what you think. All right, Laura, lots of love.
lots of love.
Bye.
Bye.